Welcome everyone to today's webinar, How Successful Dental Groups Are Helping Patients Afford Their Bills. I'm Brian Zimmerman, Senior Director, Client Content Strategy with Becker's Healthcare. And on behalf of Becker's, I want to say thank you for joining us today. So before we get into our discussion here, I'm just going to walk us through a few quick housekeeping instructions. You can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar by typing them into the Q&A box you see on your screen. Today's session is being recorded and will be available after the event. You can use the same link you used to log into today's webinar to access the recording. If at any time you have trouble with the video or audio, try refreshing your browser. You can also submit any technical questions into the Q&A box. We've got folks on the line who are there to help. So with that, I want to get to some introductions. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, share a little bit about their organization and their role. Amy, I'm going to tap on you to get the ball rolling here.
Okay. My name's Amy Eveland. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Smile Group, which is fairly new. We are about to sign off on our 6th office tomorrow. So we have a new acquisition coming on. But I have 30 years experience in dentistry. Started at the bottom with dental assisting and reception. I've done every position in the office that is possible. And I've been with the owner, Dr. Burden, for 29 years of that. So just kind of come up through and now running all 6 offices. We also have a call center in our practice that runs all of the phones, incoming, outgoing phone calls, things like that for all of our offices. So that's me.
Appreciate you sharing that. So folks can appreciate your perspective. Definitely a unique one, being that you've done every job basically imaginable in your career. Appreciate that, Amy. Tim, going to turn to you now for some introductions.
Sure. My name is Tim Tarzanov. I'm the founder and CEO for Alpha Dental Management. We are a small DSO in North Florida, mostly in the Jacksonville market and surrounding areas. I've been in this business full-time for 16 years, part-time for almost 20. And our claim to fame is that we are probably one of the most, if not the most overbuilt small DSO in the nation. We are also doing something that not a lot of folks in the DSO world do, which is run primarily or almost exclusively fee-for-service DSO. We've been in multi-office operations since 2011, and I have a wonderful team here in Jacksonville. We have 8 clinical locations and a corporate headquarters, which basically is home to our call center, which handles all of our incoming calls and does most of the outbound work. Obviously, HR, billing collections, insurance verification, IT, and data science, they're all here.
Appreciate you sharing all that, Tim, and thanks for being here. Jay, I'll turn to you now for some introductory remarks from you.
Sure. My name is Jay Letwat. I'm Executive Director of Business Development at Sunbit. Prior to Sunbit, I've got about 20 years of corporate leadership experience, really specializing in companies that are in hyper-growth mode, specifically companies that operate a piece of software that is typically highly disruptive to the current market, and really growing that and making that a market leadership position. At Sunbit, I manage the dental practice. I started it about 2.5, 3 years ago. And now we are growing pretty rapidly, both in single unit, multi-unit, as well as the DSO space. And I'm happy to be here, Brian, to talk through things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we'll hear more about Sunbit as we move through the discussion. Appreciate that, Jay. And Ryan, why don't you take us home here with the introductions?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Ryan Heroy. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for BDG Dental Services. We're out of fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. We have 18 dental offices here in Las Vegas Valley. We also have 6 support subsidiaries as well, similar to Tim. We have a call center called Dentuity that also does all the back office billing and credentialing, all that fun stuff. We have a school, we have a dental assisting school as well called BDG Academy. We have a nonprofit called Project BDG. We also have a CE, it's called BDG Think Tank as well. So we have a lot of supporting subsidiaries for our 18 dental offices here in Las Vegas. I have 12 years of experience, and all of it being with BDG Dental Services as well too. I've been with Dr. King for the last 12 years, and I'm just happy to be here today, Ryan. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Ryan. We're going to dive into our discussion now, and I'm going to start kind of broad here with this first one. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists here to share some thoughts on what they're seeing as what's their take on the current financial environment in dentistry right now. And I'm thinking here both in terms of the financial environment for providers, DSOs, and of course for patients as well. And Ryan, I'm going to tap on you to get the ball rolling since
Sure.
you went last on introductions.
Sure, and I'm a little biased. I won't get into Sunbit right away, but we've been with Sunbit for the last 2 years too. But prior to that, we were mainly with other large prime financing companies. The 10,000 pound gorilla in the industry, Care Credit. And for as a provider, it's tough, for a lot of these prime lenders, because we're only seeing about 35 to 40% approval, prior to Sunbit. That means that only 6 out of 10 patients are not approved, and we can't service them, so Sunbit's kind of been a breath of fresh air from a provider standpoint, and I think obviously from a patient standpoint, being able to get treated has helped astronomically on that side of it as well.
So some real challenges in at least traditionally speaking, in getting folks approved to get the care they need, which is a barrier to care for patients. Thank you, Ryan. Tim, do you want to build on those comments at all? What you're seeing?
Yeah, I wanted to try to address your question from maybe, I don't know, 5,000 foot view or something. But you asked, what is the climate? The climate is changing, we feel, and Jay can talk about that a little more, I guess. The government giveaways have basically been exhausted for the most part, at least in our area. So it seems like there's definitely more folks these days that struggle getting financed. We operate in the areas where patients have been struggling getting patient financing for a very long time. I chuckled when Ryan said 30-40% approval rates. We before Sunbit, we had a few locations that were getting 22 and 24% approval rates on average. So, and I've been pushing patient financing for a very long time. We were doing percentage-wise from a payer mix perspective. Patient financing has been big for us for 7 or 8 years now. And when Sunbit came out with their product, which our relationship goes back about a year and a half, if I'm not mistaken, Jay, that made a huge difference in our ability to provide funding for or facilitate funding rather for a substantial number of patients on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tim. It does sound like it's a problem everyone's running into, really, getting folks the financing they need. Amy, do you have any hook-ons here as to what you're seeing, how you're perceiving sort of the financial environment in dentistry right now?
Yes, I agree with both Ryan and Tim, everything that they've said. The only thing I would be able to add right now is just what insurance pays. Patients come in and that they're still paying the same thing that they paid 10, 20 years ago, and the copays are just getting higher. So being able to offer the financing, and a lot of our patients that come in don't even realize that they could finance their medical and dental care. So being able to offer that now is huge for us. But it's just getting into that insurance dynamic And we don't participate with a lot of them either, only just 2, but still we have the majority of our patients are on one, one of them, and the allowables are so low for that their out of pocket is getting out of hand for them. So it's nice to be able to offer a way for them to get their treatment done that's not killing them, and it's not all needs to be paid all at one time. So
I mean, appreciate that, Amy. And I think I want to get into a question that was sort of about some of what are the challenges with these traditional financing options. And I think we've sort of touched on that and covered a bit of that already. But Jay, I want to give you some room here to speak to what you're seeing in the industry.
Sure. So, I mean, if Tim was speaking from like a 5,000 foot view, I'll speak more of like a 25, 30,000 foot view, because basically in patient financing, you have 2 types of solutions, right? You have the one solution that's been around for 30 years, 30 plus years actually, which caters to prime patients. And what do I mean by prime patients? These are folks that have typically FICO scores of 680 and higher. Now, unfortunately, in the US, most people don't fit into that bucket. Usually, like what Tim was saying, what Ryan was saying as well, in terms of the approval rates of 30, 35%, that's typically what we see, right? 30 to 35% of the country has a 680 or higher FICO score. Those are just the facts. So what happens is if you don't have that high of a FICO score, and most don't, you get declined from patient financing, which means you don't get the dentistry you need. So that's the first type. The second type that's been around for, let's say, 15 years caters only to the subprime market. And so those are typically onerous processes, sky-high fees, APRs that could be 200 or 300%, ridiculous sort of sign-on fees, maintenance fees, annual fees, et cetera. They're going to ask you 5 pages of information. They're going to, go as far as asking, for your blood type. They won't, but I'm just for more, just to accentuate the point. So if you're not prime, you have to go to these horrible subprime solutions, which are just terrible for the patient and also bad for the office, because the office doesn't want to offer them either. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to combine, and we think we've done it, in which we have a solution which can approve both prime folks and subprime, because there shouldn't be a stigma if you're subprime, right? Subprime folks, they're good people. They just may have had an issue with credit in the past. So because they had an issue with credit in the past means they don't deserve to get the dentistry they need. I don't want to live in a place like that where, people who can't, who have a lower than average credit score can't get the financing you need. So what Sunbit does with our technology is we're able to approve a wide spectrum of folks from super prime all the way down to subprime.
Thank you so much for laying that out, Jay. And I think that directly brings me to the next question I wanted to ask, which I think you did a nice job of also laying out why the traditional options sort of are a struggle or a challenge for folks. But I'm curious, what is a modern approach then, as you started to lay out, Jay, to patient financing look like? Perhaps you can start us off on that question.
I think a modern approach is consistent with what people are used to today. If you go to a store or you go online, you want easy, you want fast, you want transparent. You don't want to fill out, tons of paperwork. And I'll give you a quick example, then I'd love to have the folks of the panel speak. Typically, when you fill out a credit card application, you're asked, do you rent versus own? Are you married versus single? And what is your income? These are questions, these are actually relics from 1975, which really have no bearing on the performance of the loan. But they're asked because the credit card companies are basically stuck with 1980s technology, that they need to ask those questions in order to come up with an answer in terms of the underwriting of the loan. So I think it's a patient wants to come in, much like they order fast food from a drive-through. You order, you pick it up 2 minutes later, and you're on your way. So what we want to do is the patient enters the doctor office, gets presented a solution, 30 seconds you get approved, and you're on your way, and you're in the chair getting the dentistry you need. That's how it should be. But that clearly is not how it's been the past 25, 30 years.
It's sort of a relic stuck in time almost. You get in a time machine when you go to a dentist's office and try to figure out how to pay. Thank you, Jay. I want to hear about what this this modern approach has, because we've established sort of the challenges of a traditional approach, but what have been the results of integrating this modern approach at each of your organizations? And Amy, maybe you can start us off there.
Just to add, I 100% agree with Jay as far as the speed of service. And in the offices themselves, just that speed of service really helps us out as far as staff goes, being able to help the patient, not sitting there for 30 minutes filling out the paperwork and then waiting for the approval, and then really discussing what the approval was, if it was anything, may not be anything. And then you're figuring out how else they can pay for it if they weren't. So it takes a lot of time as far as in the office with the patient, the staff. I mean, it could be 30 minutes to an hour to work out some sort of arrangement so they can get their treatment done. And like, shout out to Sunbit, it takes 30 seconds. I mean, literally 30 seconds. And then the advancement with this is it involves the patient a lot more in the payment that they're going to be making. What's more comfortable for them? They get 3 options to choose from, as I'm sure we'll see later on, but it's just the speed of service and just the easy, I mean, it's visual, you can see it, the patients can see it, they actually select it, what's, best for them. And it's all digital, no papers, no, no blood work, none of that stuff. So it's really good.
I've got to ask, I imagine we talk rightly a lot about the patient's experience here, but I've got to imagine for staff, it's a lot easier to sit there and go through that process than have a 30-minute, hour-long conversation that might be a little touchy about someone's credit score. Like, I'm just in my head.
I mean, usually in a dental office too, it's hard because a lot of patients aren't going to want to share that information. It's odd for them to come into a dental office and we're saying, what's your income? Do you own or rent? That type. Those are questions that you wouldn't typically expect at your dentist office. You just want to figure out how you can get your treatment done and move on. But yeah, it's definitely a better comfort zone for staff and patients.
Yeah. Tim, can you speak to what this new approach has done for your organization?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a instant gratification society, right? Everything's got to be right now, and if it's not right now, and if it's not easy, it's just not going to happen. It was the case 5 years ago, 7 years ago. It's even more so today, right? And when Jay started talking to us initially, and again, this goes back probably about a year and a half ago. One of the things that I did indicate to him, I did tell him that whatever you guys do, it's got to be very easy on the patient, but also got to be very easy from our staff's perspective, because I've been looking for a solution for our subprime patient base for many years. First time we actually brought somebody on board to cover that particular segment of the market initially was 2013 or 2014. That initiative died within 6 months, primarily because it was very difficult for our staff to facilitate the application process. So, and then again, for us, it's very important to have a partner that is able to process these applications, like Amy said, basically instantly. Because we do see a lot of patients that have very significant treatment needs, and they don't go to a dentist every year. They don't. Most of them don't even come to the dentist every 5 years. Some of them have 10, 20 years of dental neglect. So this is the first time that when they come to us, it's the first time they've been to a dental office in 15, 20 years. So I know it sounds a little cliche, but I mean, it's now or never type of an opportunity. And, we are there to help them to get it done. And with Sunbit's help, it's been much easier.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, these a lot of these people are coming in after 15 years of dental neglect, and then when you walk into an hour-long experience to try to figure out how you're going to pay for this care. It's got a massive barrier there. So I appreciate you sharing that, Tim. Ryan, I want to give you a chance to speak to how this approach has impacted your organization as well.
Yeah, too. I think it goes what Tim's saying as well. There's also a stigma of denial too, right? So, if you're having 6 or 7 patients getting denied, it adds to that neglect as well that, those patients been having for the last 10 years. They don't want to come back. They don't want to apply for another application too. So having Sunbit, and we see the numbers, 90% is 100% accurate. Since June 2020, we ran over 1,900 apps with our group, and we had 90% on the dot approval rating. So 9 out of 10 patients are able to be seen and treated, and I think that's a huge difference. And for our organization, from that, we generated over $2.3 million in revenue. And, that's a byproduct for us. We want to treat the patient. Obviously, we have to run a business and we have to get revenue from that too. But, those are 6 or 7 patients walking out the door every single day prior to Sunbit. So, 90% approval rating, 30-second approval process. And, something that no one's hit on yet is also the training and onboarding. I know, from our experience, and I'm sure it's the same as for Tim and Amy, but Sunbit, they have it as as streamlined as possible, actually better than most of the vendors we've ever worked with, financing or not. They come in, they train your staff the right way. And then, most vendors, they're done after the initial training, right? Not with Sunbit. Sunbit has, programs that they put on and training almost every single week in webinars. So it's constant. And that's what we need for dental practices, because, in dental practices, there's tons of turnover, and I think that's a big issue that we all deal with. So having that training and that constant training and, helping with those new team members, it really helps out a lot. So we're very thankful to have Sunbit on our team.
Yeah, sort of ease of use and patient education training. Jay, I think those comments set up perfectly. Like, let's see what Sunbit's about. Can you sort of maybe demo that for us?
Sure, absolutely. So basically what I'm showing you here is the iPad that I have right in front of me. This is the iPad that we provide the office. So Brian, I'm going to ask you a very important question. Who do you want to be today?
I'll be Beyonce. That's fine.
Good. Excellent choice. So the office team member would select their name. They would click scan card. They take the driver's license, which I have in my hand. They flip it over on the back. There's a barcode there. All you do there is scan that. And what happens automatically is my information gets extracted. So there's my home info, phone number and email. They click continue. Front office staff asks, hey, is this your updated info? If yes, they click copy to form. Patient clicks agree to check options. Just like that, Mr. Patient, you've been approved for $6,100. That's it. So that's about the 20-second process. But a couple of key things here. One, we approve every single patient with a FICO score of 500 or greater. So that's the 85 to 90% approval rate that Ryan had mentioned. We do it without a hard credit check. So it's a soft inquiry to get approved. But even if the patient decides to take the loan, we never do a hard credit check. That's something that's very, very unique. So it never harms the credit of the patient to apply or to take the loan. And then the last thing is we go up to $20,000 approval amount. So let's say, for instance, maybe you needed a root canal, $1,800. So what we do here is we have a payment plan for individuals based on their credit profile. So again, in this particular case, you can see we have 5 options, kind of like we call it the Cheesecake Factory menu. Let's say, for instance, the person wanted to pay over 48 months, very budget conscious. They wanted to pay $48 a month. So instead of paying the $1,800 today, they're actually going to pay, as you can see on the screen, $1 down, and then they're going to pay over 48 months. And then, of course, I won't go through it, but then, of course, we kind of go through the transaction, which takes about another minute to 2 minutes, and you're done. But it's really easy. And we want to make it so that the patient, because we don't know what the patient is going through, right, financially or otherwise, we want them to select the payment that's most comfortable for them. So it could be, 12 months could be good at 135, 36 at 60, or in this particular case, we chose 48 months at $48. And that in a nutshell, Brian, is how the demo works. Very streamlined, very quick, very easy. And the staff, I'll just make one final comment. Because it's so easy, the staff tends to offer it between 2 to 4 times more than whatever financing solution they had prior to Sunbit. Because the biggest impediment is not just the lack of approvals, which were at least usually doubling, like in the case of Ryan and Tim's case, and also Amy's, but because it's so easy, they just offer it more. And that's what happens now in terms of offering patient financing solutions. There's a lot of apathy in the office, and for good reason. Why would you offer a solution in which 7 out of 10 people get declined? It doesn't make sense. It's not human nature. We want to help people.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jay. Very, very nice to be able to visually conceptualize what we've been talking about. So I think that's very useful for our audience today. Ryan, I want to come back to you and ask, the question I want to move to next is really, how can organizations really make sure that they're selecting the right financing solutions and technology that are best for them and their patients? What are some considerations you would recommend folks really thinking about as they look to what's available in the market?
Sure. Yeah. Similar to what Tim was saying before, we for years and years we looked for a subprime lender, and like I mentioned before, you'd always start with your prime lender, prior to Sunbit, and then you'd have to go into now your subprime lender. So now the patient's filling out double the applications, and sometimes they get denied for both. We never see those patients again. So I think when you're looking for a vendor, a financing company, a payment assistant company, having that subprime and prime in the same place makes a world of difference. There's not 2 separate applications for our staff too. You guys mentioned that before, but it makes it so much easier on them. Everything's done through the iPad. Make sure that the financing company has is tech-based. Before we were, at one point I remember us filling out paper applications and waiting a full day to be funded. And with Sunbit, we're able to be funded same day or the day after, in most cases, and we're getting all that money up front too, which is very helpful for us.
Tim, you want to build on those comments and talk about what you would advise folks to look into as they consider solutions available out there?
Yeah, I mean, one-stop shop approach is obviously very attractive. Jay and the team have made some great steps in the right directions in terms of going after those higher loan amounts. We just talked about that just recently. I've been going to all these DSO conventions and dental conventions, and every time I would have a conversation with folks that are in the patient financing business, my message was always the same. I need my patients with lower credit scores and more moderate treatment needs to be approved for these loans that are $1,500, $2,000, $3,000. And I need my patients that do need a lot of dental work, that have higher FICO scores and higher incomes. I need to have loan products for them that are attractive, right? Because one of the things Jay and I talked about, going, presenting a financing option to a patient that needs $25,000 worth of work, and they have good credit and they have pretty decent income, giving them a fixed rate option at 11.99%, that's just not going to fly. So, and again, one-stop shop approach is wonderful, and that's been my message to Sunbit for a while, and they have just recently increased the maximum loan amount, and that is definitely very exciting, because we do have a lot of patients these days that we do see for overdenture cases as well as fixed cases. And, those are pretty high dollar, regardless of how you slice and dice it. So having somebody who is able to provide those $12, $15, $18,000 loans is obviously a great service. And if it's a one-stop shop, that's even better, because previously, we had three loan product, three competitors that we used. The aforementioned 10,000-pound gorilla, right? Sunbit, and we had another source that was being used exclusively for folks with higher treatment needs and better FICO scores. So one-stop shop approach is important. It makes it easier for everyone.
Yeah, to be able to offer, financial options for the entire spectrum of patients' financial pictures, and also the clinical spectrum, right? Like some folks need a lot of care. And to be able to do that with one option versus, like you said, having three various partners that your staff kind of has to navigate that landscape. One-stop shop. You put it pretty succinctly there. Amy, anything you would add to what you've heard from Ryan and Tim?
I agree with them both as far as the ease of service and speed, and just not having to ask what's your credit score to know which lending service you're going to use. It's just an uncomfortable question to have to ask, but it's also just knowing and being able to tell your patient that it's not a hard credit check. Let's just see what you can do, what you get, and then we can go from there. And as soon as they hear that, they're like, oh, okay, let's do it. There's no hard credit check. Even if they're on the fence, they're not quite sure. They've been working on the credit, but they don't know exactly what it is right now. The last thing they want is a hard credit check if they're working on their credit and trying to get it better. So it's just, it's nice to be able to tell them that. It's just makes them feel more comfortable in looking into it and see what options they have.
Yeah, and Amy, I imagine too that as we've discussed here, but that feature of someone being able to say, "Hey, it's not a hard credit check," and the simplicity of the platform, as Jay sort of illustrated with the demo, makes the staff education training component of this a lot easier. But I do want to talk a little bit more about that, Amy. Can you share how your organization sort of approaches education, empowering staff to have those conversations with patients around education around payment options?
Just as far as the staff goes, just the training that Sunbit offered and ways that they could handle the patients, what you can offer them as far as the no credit check, that's very appealing to the staff, because it's the job itself and doing financial coordinating, and it's very stressful for them, because in the past it's been low approval. So being able to give patients this good news, like, hey, it's no hard credit check. We can work out different, you can pick your payment that you want each month. It's just that much, it's more pleasant for the staff, and they're excited to talk to the patients, to show them what we can help them with. You can get your treatment done. We don't have to struggle with how to pay, call your moms, can can you borrow from your mom? Like, we've had those conversations, and it's just not that difficult any longer. And as far as the being able to educate the patient, we're worried more about educating them on their dental treatment now. Like, we want them to understand what they're getting done, and it's just not stressful about the financial part anymore. It's just our focus is on dental treatment right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, perhaps I imagine too, like a morale booster for staff, not to have like patients walk out the door after and not be able to afford care. I can imagine that can be pretty demoralizing for folks.
Oh yes, it's hard to watch them leave the office knowing that they can't get that work done, or they have to get the extraction because that's the lower amount. And it's just, it is very rewarding as a staff member to be able to help patients, and 90% of them, yes, it's very rewarding for us as a dental profession.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Ryan, is it similar for you now as far as when you think about patient education? Is it a little bit more of a focus on the clinical care versus less time spent on really navigating the financial elements?
I think so. I think Amy hit it right on the head. For us, I guess I've never thought about that, but now, I definitely noticed that there's a lot more focus on the clinical side. The doctors are happier because we're seeing those approval ratings before. Usually our doctors kind of say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about, financing." But now with Sunbit, I see them more and more talking about it because, the approval ratings there. It makes a lot of sense too. And we try to, the psychology around financing, there is this stigma, around financing, like Amy mentioned. And, so we try to, talk about payment assistance instead of financing and really, let the patients know up front that, there are 90% getting approved with this new program that we have as well. So, focusing more on the clinical side of it and what we should be focusing on as dentists and dental providers makes it so much easier for us too. So we're just happy to be a part of that and have this platform for us to help service our patients.
Yeah, it sounds like that when you are focusing on sort of those financial conversations about being clear that this is an easy process and trying to like de-stress because folks might come in thinking like they might be a little bit nervous about if as soon as you approach how you're going to pay for it, they might be really nervous. But it sounds like you're empowering staff to let folks know, hey, this is not going to be, this is a 90% approval. Like,
it's not a used car salesman type, anytime you think of financing, you always think of, cars and, getting finance for cars or used car salesman. And it's not that approach anymore, which is, it's just a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Tim, would you have anything to add here on how you think about really educating patients on their financial options and financial payments?
Yeah, for us, it's definitely a matter of it being a team approach. At our offices, where the entire team is very much educated on Sunbit, and where folks in different roles in the offices are working with patients on getting the applications in and getting them approved, that's where we see most success. Not only the office managers, not only treatment coordinators, but also lead assistants, also hygienists. They play a big part. When everybody is on the same page, it just makes a big difference. Sunbit makes it easy. There's an iPad. We have promotional brochures throughout the office. We have obviously information on our website as well. So even the call center folks, when they talk to new patients, they do bring it up. They do mention it. If the patient is interested in learning more, we actually will send them a link. So and again, but everybody in the office needs to be on the same page. I can clearly tell you which of my offices are in that category where it's everybody, and which are in the other category where it's only the office manager and maybe one other person.
Yeah, that's probably helpful for folks watching this too, is just make sure everyone's on the same page, and it's going to make things a lot more streamlined, right, across the organization. Thank you, Tim. Jay, I want to give you the floor now to talk about anything you've heard here from Amy, Tim, and Ryan, and then I've got a question I want to ask you after you add any hook-ons.
Sure. First of all, it's Tim, Amy, and Ryan are great partners of ours, and it's really gratifying, on a personal level, also a professional level, just to hear how we've positively affected their practices. I always tell people kind of facetiously, we're not brain surgeons, right? We're not saving lives, but what we are doing is trying to make it easier for folks to get the dentistry that they need. So everyone who walks in that dental office door, I know that 8.5 to 9 out of 10 of those folks are going to get an offer. And for me, that is what's really gratifying, and it's really great to hear the comments that Ryan, Amy, and Tim have made.
Excellent. And Jay, my question for you then is, what's next for Patient Financial Solutions? How will this space, do you imagine, will continue to evolve to better support patients and providers?
Well, I think a lot has changed. I mean, if you kind of look at the market overall, the patient financing market has basically had a lack of innovation for the past 30 years, right? Patient financing kind of started in the early 90s. And basically, there is a 10,000 pound gorilla, and they have been dominant for a long, long time, serving prime customers. But I think a lot has changed in terms of technology. So typically, where do you see the innovation in technology? You see it from younger upstart companies. I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the cruise ship industry, and he was telling me last week that it takes a full-size cruise ship 16 minutes to make a 90-degree turn, right? 16 minutes. I mean, think about what we do in our lives in 16 minutes. That's a lot of time. And particularly today's, as Tim was saying, kind of this instant gratification world we live in. So 16 minutes to make a right turn is an eternity. In technology, it should take you 5 to 10 seconds, right? So that's why young upstart companies like, even companies like Uber, Tesla, Airbnb have kind of changed industries, and now they're the market leader because they started small, saw something that was broken, fixed it, and then moved quickly. Whereas the large companies, they just simply can't do that. When you're 10,000 or 15,000 employees, I mean, you just can't move that quickly. That's the bottom line. And I think another reason is, if you look kind of financial technology, so much has changed the past 3 to 5 years. So if you look at companies like Chime, like Venmo, so either these online neobanks or these applications, there are more people, Brian, that open up accounts at Venmo and Chime on an annual basis than they do at Bank of America, Chase, and Wells Fargo combined. So the market has totally changed. FinTech has completely reshaped things. And you're going to continue to see solutions that are quicker, easier, and better. And we think that, I'm biased, obviously, but we think that Sunbit is one of them. And we think we're going to be one of the leaders in the patient financing realm very soon.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, it does sound like a big transformation has already occurred and is continue to be underway. I appreciate that. I want to turn now to welcome each panelist to either build on something Jay just said or share something that they didn't get to speak to during our time together before we sign off. Tim, we can start with you. Any closing thoughts? Anything you didn't get a chance to say that you want to say?
Sure. Again, I talked about it a couple of times, but making sure that everybody in the organization understands why patient financing is important. What are the advantages, not only to us as the service provider, but as also to the patient. I think that's super important. A few years ago, there was a lot of during the Medicaid expansion push by the previous administration, right? There was a lot of talk about access to care. Well, access to care means different things to different people, right? What Jay's company is doing, that's also access to care. Access to care doesn't have to be all about Medicaid, right? So, and we certainly view it that way. If we are increasing access to care for a certain sliver of the population that previously weren't able to receive it, that's wonderful. That's the way I look at it. And the last thing I'd like to say is, from the overall business perspective, patients, at least in our world, most of the patients that use patient financing, or at least half of them, are indeed fee-for-service patients. If we are not going to take care of these fee-for-service patients, what are the alternatives? The alternative is obviously to bring more insured patients, PPO, or God forbid, HMO patients. And, you know, fee schedules, I mean, you can't even compare. I mean, you are, you are automatically leaving somewhere between 35 and 65% on the table just on a fee schedule differential. And from my standpoint, those are not very attractive numbers. So we choose to take care of our fee-for-service patients every time, whatever it takes.
Thank you, Tim. Again, appreciate you being here today. Amy, turning to you now for any closing remarks or thoughts you have.
Just something I didn't get to add. I know I mentioned the ease of or speed of service and the rewarding part of that staff get by dealing with patients. I just want to add how Sunbit gets involved in the staff rewards. They play games with the staff. As far as the training, the staff is all about their pizza lunches when they do so much, you know, it kind of engages the staff into offering Sunbit to patients, not to kind of, don't forget about it. It's not just let's see what they can pay today. It's very interactive, and no other company does that with our staff, maybe with your own staff, but they're reaching out to our people. And it's just rewarding to know that they have our back as far as patient care, and just the staff engagement is just, it's wonderful. And then it's with patients, it's just so much easier technologically wise anyway. Everybody wants to do work on their cell phones. So now we have QR codes that leads you right to their qualifications link. They can do their purchase right then and there as well. They can do it themselves. It's much easier for them. They can be sitting in the recliner and see what they can, you know, how they can get their treatment done. It's just so simple. And that's the innovative part for me that we've never had in the past. And it's just, again, easy on our staff when we get that email saying this patient did their application and they get so much money, and then we can call them. Let's get your appointment scheduled. Let's get the whole series done and we can get you healthy. So it's just, our concentration is on the patient and how we can spend more time with them to make sure that they're healthy. That's our goal. The Sunbit just makes it way more easier for them to get it done and for us to help them. So I just shout out the Sunbit. We love them.
Thank you so much, Amy.
If I can add, we've only been with them for less than 7 months. And one of my favorite reports on the dashboard is the subprime approvals. And we've been able to help 165 patients that were subprime, that we would have never been able to help that many in the past, in less than 7 months. And the revenue from that was $252,000, I believe. That's just income that the business wouldn't have gotten and treatment that patients wouldn't have been able to receive. So the way they've helped us and the patients is just amazing.
Really appreciate you sharing your experience and those specific numbers. I mean, I think that really paints a picture. Thank you, Amy. Ryan, final thoughts from you?
Yeah. You know, Amy hit it right on the head too. I was about to go into the provider dashboard too. I think with Sunbit being such a tech company, it allows us to really drill down and be very specific on, you know, office by office, even user by user. That was something that, you know, other financing companies didn't offer. So we can see user by user how well the users are performing, also the officers are performing. You know, with any big organizational change, you know, and especially with us using other vendors for, you know, 10, 15 years, those changes are difficult. So, you know, sometimes offices are hesitant to make that change over to a new tech-based financing company. And, you know, we're able to see that and trend it out. And actually Sunbit's team will go out there and help train that staff if they are having some resistance too. So, you know, I think overall, you know, Sunbit's been a great partner for us. You know, we're very tech savvy on our end, and, you know, any type of tech and, you know, approval aside, and, you know, I think you know, it's a great option for anybody looking for a financing company that's state of the art, you know, on that side of it too. But we're so you know, happy to have Sunbit and be able to treat our patients the way that they should be treated, you know, regardless of their FICO score. You know, what does that really mean, you know, on that side of it too, you know. So, you know, patients are patients, and people deserve to be treated regardless of their financial standing.
Appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you so much for being here. Jay, we are at time, but of course, want to give you some space for any final words.
Sure. I just wanted to thank, Ryan, Amy, and Tim, great people, great partners, and thanks for your time and coming on. If anyone out there would like to learn a little bit more about Sunbit's patient financing solution, you can go to sunbit.com/dental, and we will get you taken care of. But thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jay, for being here. Amy, Ryan, and Tim, thank you so much for taking the time. It was an excellent conversation. Thank you to Sunbit as well for sponsoring today's webinar. To learn more about the content presented today, please check out the resources section on your webinar console and fill out the post-webinar survey. Thank you for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Right.